We are live.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the 84th meeting of 7th Council of the Municipality of South Dundas. Meeting in the snowy April morning is to go over the revised 2021 wastewater budget. After our first one, we sent it back to staff, and we are looking forward to reviewing the new figures. Is there any additions to the agenda from any member of council this morning? I will be adding, requesting under 4A, a closed session concerning personal matters re-staff. If there's nothing else, I'd like to call for a roll call. Mr. Clerk.
Mayor Byvelds.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Here.
Councillor Wells.
Here.
Councillor Lewis.
Here.
Councillor Mellon. Councillor Mellon.
Oh.
Thank you. CAO Garrity.
Here.
Clerk Brunt.
Here.
Treasurer McMillan.
Here.
Director of Environmental Services Watson.
Here.
Deputy Treasurer Mason.
Here.
And Manager of Water and Wastewater Villeneuve.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof this morning from any member of council? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion items, and I'll turn it over to our treasurer concerning the revised 2021 water wastewater budget. So Sarah, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So before you this morning is the second draft of the water and wastewater budgets. Staff have revised the rates for both Morseburg and Iroquois wastewater, and we've provided a recommendation for funding the pumping station in Dutch Meadows as directed by Council. So I'll start today with the water budget, and then we can go through each budget individually as we've done previously. So for water, the proposed rate increase remains the same, $15 per month increase to the flat rate, and then the 23-cent increase to the water capital levy to pay for the water tower debenture. Staff have removed the O-Star grant of $16,000 along with the gas tax allocation from revenue. The reasoning behind this is that we have proposed to council in the previous meeting to earmark the additional gas tax funds that we've received for the Carmen Road repair. So staff are proposing that this repair happens in 2022. Therefore, we won't include that revenue in this budget because there's no offsetting capital expense. So those funds will remain in reserves until next year when they're required. Staff have added 2 capital projects to the budget as well. So there's $14,000 in there for the Class A estimate for the Carmen Road repair. And then there's $60,000 for the Dutch Meadows water mains. This was previously included in with the Morseburg wastewater budget, so it's just been reallocated to water. So the budget as presented today, it shows a projected $250,000 transfer to reserves to be utilized in 2022 for the Carmen Road repair. Is there any questions from council at this time?
Okay, so before we move on to the sewer, we also have on page 4, we also have the proposed rates. You want to go through that, Sarah? So because as much as we were semi-comfortable with the water increase, with this kind of gives us a little bit more vision of it.
Yep, I can do that. So yeah, so on page showing page 3 of my, but yeah, page 4 is
the agenda, sorry.
Yeah. So the proposed rates that we have included in the budget today. So like I mentioned, for the flat rate, it's an increase of $15 per month for both Morseburg and Iroquois. Consumption rate stays the same at 70 cents per cubic meter. The capital levy is increasing by 23 cents per cubic meter to $1.03. So for Morrisburg and Iroquois wastewater, what we've done is for Iroquois, I'm starting with Iroquois because we're proposing to reduce the percentage from 100% of the water flat rate and consumption to 86.76%. So with this rate, it balances the proposed budget and allows for the requested transfers for the pump program, Arizam blower, and Eurodrive. If we were to cut back the rate any further, then we need to fund the budget with reserves. So that's not recommended. So if council wanted to reduce that wastewater rate even further, the option would be to cut either from operations or capital expenses. And then from there, we reduce the Morrisburg wastewater rate from 75% to 65.0%. And with that, there's a projected transfer to reserves in 2021 of just over $185,000. And this also includes a requested budget transfers for the pump program, sure feeds, and then also connection fees, but it excludes the Dutch Meadows connection fees. So with both those increases, with Morrisburg at 65.09% and Iroquois at 86.76%, the wastewater increases for both villages are the same. I'm hoping, I know it's a lot of numbers, so I'm hoping that made sense.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns? Mainly on the water side, but you can see now the impact of the proposed the wastewater differences, and I do appreciate the percent increases. They are significant. So, Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Sorry, I'm just getting my footing. I was cutting in and out.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still
You're still cutting in and out, Deputy Mayor.
Go somewhere else. I'll come back.
Okay, Councilor Wells, any comments on this page right now? And I know we can adjust some as well. But that's what it is.
Mayor. No, not right yet. I'm just putting the numbers through my head right now.
Okay, Councilor Lewis, any comments right now?
No, I have no comments at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon, any comments this time?
Yeah, Sarah, you said you added two capital projects that they weren't added in on the first time we went through the budget. And what was the total dollar amount on those two capital projects that were added?
So there was $14,000 for the Class A assessment for Carmen Road. And then there was $60,000 added for the Dutch Meadows water main.
Okay. Guess, yeah, okay. That's included in your numbers here now. They weren't
That's
before. Yeah, both of those capital projects. Well, you know, the water main for Dutch Meadows, and I think we need to have that Class A on 14,000. Okay, that's all for right now, Mayor Byvells.
Deputy Mayor, are we back? And any
I
comments?
think so. Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna sit with it a bit. I still maintain the water main to Dutch Meadows, I don't know. It seems to be switched around a little bit, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it. So I guess we'll wait and see as we progress, but I just I'm not sure. I'm definitely not 100% okay with it at this point.
Okay. Well, we'll move on into the figures on water. Has anything changed on that, Sarah, besides the capital, or is there something here we need to see?
No, the only changes were the capital additions.
Okay. If there's nothing further on that, then we'll move on to the wastewater side then, please, because that was the concern last time.
So for Morrisburg and for Iroquois wastewater, we haven't made any changes to the operating and capital in those budgets, except for in the Morrisburg wastewater, we had the Dutch Meadows water main included in that amount before, so it's been reallocated to the water budget. The only difference is we've changed the rate, so with that, it changes the transfers to reserves, which I spoke about previously, but I can go through that again if you'd like.
On the water side?
No, this wastewater.
Okay, well, let's pretend we're restarting on the wastewater and
Okay.
if there's any on all those changes, because that
Okay, so
there is
I'll
difference from the last time, and then we have the big discussion on Dutch Meadows and everything else, how that works, so.
Okay, so for Morrisburg wastewater, we're proposing reducing the rate from the 75% of the water flat rate and consumption to 65.09%. So the budget as presented projects a transfer of just over 185,000 to reserves. And this amount includes the requested transfers. So the pump program sure feeds and then connection fees. And also it excludes the connection fees for Dutch Meadows. That's it for Morrisburg. Do you want me to speak about Iroquois now, or do we want to discuss Morrisburg?
Anything on Morrisburg right now? We'll move on to Iroquois. Any member of council? Seeing none, we'll move on then, please.
So for Iroquois, we're proposing reducing the rate from 100% to 86.76%. So with this rate, it balances the budget. So there's no additional transfers to reserves other than the requested transfers for the pump program, Arizam blower, and Euro drive. So if council does want to decrease the rate any further for Iroquois, then we'll need to look at cutting operating or capital expenses. Because if it goes any lower, then and we keep the expenses the same, we'll have to look at funding the budget with reserves for this year.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns on the wastewater side of things right now? Deputy Mayor.
So just for clarification, maybe because it's early, when you say that we're reducing the rate, are you talking about reducing the rate of the original proposal, or are you talking about reducing the current rate?
Sorry, my wording probably not. So we're reducing the percentage. So the percentage before for Iroquois was 100% of your water flat rate and water consumption. So we're proposing reducing that to 86.76%.
Okay, so what was the thought process? Because whenever we had this discussion previously, and you're right, it is a lot of numbers, so bear with me with the clarification. But whenever we were talking last time, it was a massive increase. Now we're coming back and we're looking at what the percentage was, and we're reducing that percentage off of what it is right now. What was the thought process behind that?
Well, council directed before to put the Iroquois wastewater down,
Yep.
so there was no increase. But the issue with that is if we reduce it, so if we were to go with that direction, we'd have to reduce Iroquois down to 73%. If we do that, then we have to fund the proposed budget with reserves. So
Okay.
it's not best practice to fund your operating with the reserves.
No, I understand. I also understand that we do have reserves for different projects. So what for the folks that are watching, what is the increase on their bill for sewer?
So it's an 18% increase.
Which for the average person means how much a month roughly?
One moment.
I believe it was around $7.20 per month.
Okay, that's it for now for me. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on council? Council Wells?
Yeah, like putting this all together, like myself personally, I agree with Sarah about not taking money out of the reserves to cover the budget. Like that's basically going backwards. And again, I was not for the $15 straight across, but the more you think about something like this at $7, it evens the budget. And I think if we start taking from reserves that keep everything at the same, in my mind, we're not gonna go anywhere with that. I think the 720 is it's half of what it was before. So, like Sarah says, like it's not recommended to take stuff out of reserve, even though we can. I'm not in favor of that. Like, and I know at this time, the pandemic and everything, people's not working, but like I think if we take that route, we'll be going backwards. So I'll leave. I'll sit and listen more. And yeah, Sarah.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify for Kirsten's comment. So it is $7.41 per month increase.
Yes. Yeah. Before it was going to be $15 a month increase. So we got it cut in half, correct? Basically. Okay. That's it for now, Mayor.
Okay, any other comments from any other members of council this time? Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, so I do agree with Councillor Wells, to use reserves for operating, I don't think is probably a smart idea. It's there for a rainy day and capital projects that come up. Sarah, so we're going to be on the Iroquois sewer reserve, we'll be adding, it'll be up to approximately 165 and change ending balance. I'm on forward here on the reserve. So that right now, that's what you're projecting at 165,000. Is there anything coming out of that? You're putting 68,000 in, but then there'll be 48,000 that come out of that reserve for capital projects of lower Euro Drive and pump program. Is that correct?
So we're proposing to put, yes, the 68,000 into the Iroquois sewer reserves, and we're not proposing utilizing any reserves.
Oh, so you're not going to be utilizing that reserve for that blower, the Euro Drive, and the pump program. There would be about 48,000 there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the rate increase at 741, is that just for Iroquois or Iroquois and Morrisburg? It would the billing increase a month. Is that just for Iroquois or Iroquois and Morrisburg?
So for Iroquois, it's the 741 a month. For Morrisburg, just give me a second. For Morrisburg, it's $5.57 per month.
And Morrisburg, that's on the sewer side of things, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's all for right now, Mayor Byvells.
Okay, so my understanding, Sarah, that the money we put in reserves is basically to build up the reserves to deal with the replacements of those capital items when that time comes along, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Which makes logical sense. I don't have an issue with that. I know if a pump goes, we gotta have money in the bank account to deal with it. Mayor, anything right now?
No, I think with me, I just I get that everyone's happy that it's half of what was presented last time, but I think that if we had had this presented to us at first, we probably might be a little bit more reluctant. And yes, I do understand what reserves are for, but you know, it's $88 a hit. It's almost $100 a year. I get that we have old infrastructure and we have to deal with it, and that's why the water towers are a major project. So yeah, I get it. I'm trying to look under the lens of if it was the first number that was presented to us, would I be happy with it? And I don't think I would be, but I'll just leave that on the table.
Okay, so everybody's good with the Williamsburg side of the wastewater. I think that was something that the $5 increase and everybody was good. So going back to page 3 on Sarah's budget, which is the proposed rates and the increases, the impacts that those are. Before we go on any further, because our next discussion is strictly Dutch Meadows and how we're going to deal with the financing of the pump station. And that has been taken out of the billing system for now. As much as I'm not going to say council is comfortable with it, but council has to live with this decision once we go on any further. So these are the rates. The justification for the water increases are mainly the water towers and anything. Is there anything else that we need to fund out of that extra money we are collecting right now, Sarah?
No, it's more for an asset management purpose. And well, actually, we're collecting for Carmen Road, sorry.
Okay.
So with what the proposed transfer for this year, along with the gas tax allocation, we'll have about $600,000, I guess saved, if you will, for the Carmen Road repair. So then once we have the Class A estimate, we'll have a better idea of what that's going to cost. But I think like preliminary is we're guessing around 1.2 million.
If we do it all.
Correct.
Okay, and then the numbers on the wastewater side, the percentages are what we need to balance the budget as presented.
That's to balance for Iroquois, and then we've reduced the percentage for Morrisburg, so the percentage increase is the same for both villages.
Okay. So just to clarify, just want to make sure, as much as council is not comfortable with this is what we're gonna pass if we allow this to go on. Deputy Mayor Gardner.
The items that are in the budget for purchase, are we gonna have I mean, I know this is the second meeting and sorry, I've just been meetinged out, but we've reviewed them and we're comfortable with each purchase that has been presented? Because in other budgets, we go through it and I understand obviously water's different, but they're all absolutely necessary purchases.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Gardner, Dennis and myself have gone through the budget. We actually haven't asked for anything significant in 2021 with regards to water or wastewater. It's pretty much status quo operations wise. We are asking for some additional funds to fund that pump program in the Iroquois budget because we need to start putting away some money. Our infrastructure, as you acknowledged earlier, is aging. If we start cutting those funds, our concern, Dennis is also on the line if he wants to jump in, is that we don't have those funds to draw from. We would have to come back to council and request them anyways. They just go into the reserve. But with regards to purchases, we're not purchasing anything new this year. If you go through the operating budget, there isn't any significant increases for any operating purchases. It's mainly just the capital items. And again, that has to do with what Sarah was saying, asset management and accounting for the infrastructure that's aging and could potentially fail. With water and wastewater, specifically wastewater, we have to be careful if something fails. We don't have the opportunity to not address it. We have to address it right away in order to continue that service. So we were very, when reviewing the budget, me and Dennis were very considerate of what the impact might be. So we feel that what we've presented to council previously and today is what we can do. I don't know if Dennis wants to say anything else, but we feel that it's best for operations and future budgeting.
Dennis, any comment?
No, not so. Thank you, Mayor. No, nothing. Danielle said everything right on. We have an errors and blower that's on the budget. It's $18,000 for that. Right now, the one we had that's up in Iroquois, it gave us some trouble, and I took it out and we got it repaired. But if we were to, like, it's 6 to 8 months to get another errors and blower in, and it could be even longer, Webb, with this pandemic. We can't take a chance of not having another blower there, because then the sewage plant wouldn't operate. So that's the reason why that's on there. Other than that, everything else is just operation stuff that we need day to day.
Thank you. I know this is tedious, but I think I don't want any assumptions made. I think it's important to have an explanation for our residents. So thank you.
Okay. Before I go on to any other member of council, can we go to the reserve fund page, which is 13 of the agenda, so I guess 12 of your budget. And I just want to make sure that council is comfortable with the transfers to and from, and because some accounts are going up and the reasons why are there, but I want to, want to make sure that we're all comfortable with stocking this money away for what we need listed to the side. So we just basically go through them, and then at least I think it's a little bit fuller information package then. So, Sean going to do this, Sarah? One of them.
Sean, do you have some, you want me to go? Okay. So also, okay, so Williamsburg Sewer Reserve Fund, that's, the proposal is to transfer 38,737 from, and that's to fund the 2021 capital in that budget. The Water Rate Stabilization Reserve Fund, we'll have a more discussion, I think, about that when we talk about Dutch Meadows, but the proposed budget right now is to put $25,000 in from the Dutch Meadows connection fees from 2021. Iroquois Sewer Reserve Fund, so that's just for Iroquois Sewer. We don't have any proposed transfers to or from that fund. The deferred revenue for the Iroquois Sewer Plant, so that is the relining that we're getting done right now. So the proposal is to 319,469, and I think the residual is just a little bit of interest right now, but I think the plan is to use up all that funding this year. For the Rito St. Lawrence, I put that one in for water and sewer since we are using 900,000 for the water towers. And also the proposal is to use an additional, I think it's 597 for Dutch Meadows for the pumping station. The two amount for the RSL is the interest that we receive on the promissory note. I haven't included any dividends as we didn't receive one in the previous year, and I haven't heard anything about any prospective dividends for 2020. Moving on.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Before we go on, so two questions I have. The RSL promissory note, is that real cash in dollars sitting in our account?
The actual note?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because notes are sometimes pieces of paper that really are an asset but don't mean nothing when it comes to spending money. The next one is the dividend account. Is it a separate account?
No, so we just have one reserve fund account. So all dividends, reserve funds are kept in that one account. So with the RSL promissory note, we're not proposing to touch any of that money. So I do show an ending balance of like just over 1.1 million, but the promissory note it's just over $900,000. So I show a calculation in my report for Dutch Meadows that we'll have just over $100,000 left of RSL money, and that's just strictly dividend interest income, and then interest on the note.
Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify that because this looks like a really nice number, but then if the number is not a real, well, number is accounted for in different ways, then I can understand that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you can
So
move on then, and
moving on to the reserve. So the water reserve, we have a proposed transfer of just under 375. So we've outlined on the side there what the earmark transactions are, and then the transfer of 254 for the Carmen Road repair is the projected, I guess, surplus for 2021. For Morrisburg sewer reserves, I discussed that previously too. The transfer is 187, and that includes the amounts that we've earmarked for the pump program, connection fees, and then sure feeds. And then Iroquois sewer reserves, the only transfer is the requested transfers and no projected surplus.
okay, any comments, questions, concerns, any of the reserve funds? From any member of council? Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing council should keep in mind is those numbers that are proposed there are unaudited and exclude any surpluses or deficits from 2020 that Mr. Pollock's group will do with year-end entries.
Okay, good thing to keep in mind. I won't ask if there's any leanings because we'll wait for the audit when it comes back. There's no questions on that. Then back to my original question on page 4. Are we good with what we're gonna do? And first of all, Councilor Mellon had his finger up, so I'll go to him first.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Byvells. So Sarah, we're not touching the original promissory note from RSL or the dividends. That all we're looking at utilizing of the RSL money is the interest we've collected over the last number of years. Is that correct?
We're not using any of the promissory note, but the dividends that we receive and any interest income, that's what we've been using to fund the water towers and proposing for the Dutch Meadows pumping station.
Okay. So at the a little over the ending balance is 1.1, and the promissory note is you said 900 or something. So correct in my poor math to say there's a little bit of a couple 100,000 there from the promissory note to what our ending balance should be. We're not using all of the all the dividends or all the interest. Am I getting that right?
That's correct. So there'll be $131,000 remaining in like interest and dividends.
Okay. Why? I know, we don't want to deplete, and we don't want to use the promissory note, which I totally agree and support. But in this economic climate, I don't know, why not draw down that promissory or the interest and the dividends? If we're drawing down on it as we are, why not draw down even farther? That's just a thought.
That can be a council decision. What we've proposed for Dutch Meadows is just funding it 50% through Infrastructure Ontario and 50% using the RSL funds. If council would like to use more of the RSL funds, then that's a council decision.
It's just that, over the years, that money has accumulated interest and, dividends. And, there was a question I asked quite a few years ago is, that account, all that money, and, it's sort of like a savings account, you never like to touch it, but it's there for when you need it. And to my mind, we need it. So I would even go so far as to draw that down even maybe by another 100,000. The interest and the dividends, without touching the promissory note.
I'm gonna suggest, Council Mellon, that we go through the staff proposal on the Dutch Meadows financing, and then we can see what's left. I agree with you, the promissory note is something, we can't go beyond that, because in my mind, I'm thinking of how they work, and we may be asking somebody else for money that they don't really have, so it's good to have the interest and dividends sitting in that account, but I'm going to strongly suggest we don't go beyond the initial number of the promissory note, because of it may have implications that we don't know yet right now. And, I'm not saying we should use it. I think we should be careful in using it on operational if there's capital, and that we may land up dealing with that next year on the Carmen Road water line. We need to keep that in the back of our minds, that if we don't do it, if we don't put a little bit of money aside this year, next year we won't have the money to do it, and then we'll do probably something we will regret, which is only half a job instead of a full job. So I think council's objective is to do a full job. To do that, we need funding, and that money's got to come from somewhere. We all know that our debt levels are getting to the point that they're not scary yet. I will say that, but we have to have comfort level in what we do too, and how we go forward. So, Deputy Mayor, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just thinking before we go into the Dutch Meadows conversation, because everything's a little bit muddied. If we can get kind of just a recap, I know where we're at with Williamsburg. I think that we need a recap as far as what a resident in Morrisburg that's on water and sewer will be paying, and what a resident in Iroquois will be paying for water and sewer increase wise. So if we can just.
Let's circle back to that page then, which is page 4 of our agenda, or page 3 of the budget document. And this is on I'll let Sarah go through this again and point out the increases. This is on an annual basis, and that's fair enough, but people see their bill. People will see their first bill, and it won't be an annual bill. It'll be that first jump that's going to scare them. And we need to be prepared to defend what we decide today on that.
Okay, so I'll start with Morrisburg. So again, flat rate increase is $15 per month. The consumption has stayed the same at 70 cents per cubic meter. The capital levy has increased by 23 cents per cubic meter, and that's solely to help fund the water tower debenture. Then for Morrisburg wastewater, we're proposing that they pay 65.09% of the flat rate and consumption. So the total for, I guess you say the average residential user is $1259.16. So that equals $274.44 total annual increase, or $22.87 per month. So for Iroquois, it's similar to Morrisburg for the water fees, the exact same. The difference for Iroquois is the wastewater, so they would be paying 86.7629% of the wastewater. So the total would be $596.79. The total annual increase for Iroquois is $296.55, and that equals $24.71 per month increase.
Go ahead.
So the $15 a month, right? Just to be clear, that is also for the water tower, correct?
No, that's more, that's to help fund operations, capital, and also to help with the transfer to reserves.
Okay. That is a anytime a bill goes up to almost $25 a month, that is a huge jump. And I get, all the projects and all that fun stuff, but $25 a month, that's, I don't know.
That it? Deputy Mayor? Councilor Wells?
Okay. I was clear in everything to the last little bit here. So the $15 flat rate, that's to finance the debenture on the water towers, correct?
No, the $15 per month is to help fund the operations and capital expenses of the water budget. And it also is to help boost the transfer to reserves for the Carmen Road repair in 2022.
So what's the money? How much are we charging the resident? I thought the $15 increase for the water was for the towers. That's what I heard before. Now, like, Sarah, where's the money for what are we doing for the increase is just for the water tower debt payments?
So the increase to the water capital levy, so the 23 cents increase, that's to help fund the water towers.
And we need $15 more a month just to cover our budget. That really, what I heard from Danielle on that, as far as capital, that nothing's really changed that much. I don't know. I thought I had everything in order, but now I kind of don't. I'm not. I was under the assumption the $15 increase was basically to cover the costs of the towers and the budget. But now it's not. So I'm just confused about $15 there especially when there's not, as far as capital on just the water side itself, there's nothing really going on that's changed. So I don't know why we need the extra 15, but maybe I'm not seeing the full picture. Maybe I'm just not understanding it, but.
So
Go ahead, Sarah.
So what we're trying to do, we need to increase the transfer to reserves, especially at the one project that's, I guess, what's staring us in the face right now is the Carmen Road repair. So we need to have enough money to pay for that in 2022. So with the proposed transfer to reserves this year, plus the extra gas tax allocation, we'll have about $600,000 saved for that project. And then in 2022, we're hoping to have enough money to do the project. But again, it's hard to say until we get the Class A what that's going to be. And also council will need to decide if we're going to do the whole project, if we're only going to do a portion. But we are starting to try and save for that project without trying to leverage any more debt for this.
Okay, no, and that actually, since you that little explanation there, it's either we ask Paul for the money now, or we ask them next year for the money, like when we have to do it at the end of the day. Okay, now I see the $15. It's for the cost, which, as we all know, that has to be replaced. So at the end of the day, I know, and I agree with Deputy Mayor, it's a hit, but whether they take the soft hit to the shoulder now or take the full blow next year when we have to go to Ontario Infrastructure to borrow 1.2 million in 2022 or whatever. So at the end of the day, I know this council is kind of hit after hit after hit with all our infrastructure and what we have to do. But at the end of the day, to the public, things got to be paid for. So like there's no magical money tree. So I guess basically this budget we're saving for a rainy day. which the only thing we know, this rainy day's coming, so put things in perspective. I guess at the end, we gotta do what we gotta do to get things paid for. Even though it's gonna hurt people, but what do you do? We have a municipality that needs money, infrastructure, it's gotta come from somewhere, so. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing that council should also recall is that when we rebuilt Ontario Street, the water reserve took a hit of almost $245,000 to fund that project. So that's just one street. So at some point in time, there's going to be another street that needs to be done in one of the urban settings. It's going to draw down that amount. And realistically, the 245 that's proposed in the budget as a transfer now just replenishes that without any real plan, without any real gains going forward. Just keep that thought in your mind.
Okay, and before I go on to Councillor Lewis, residents of the water users of Morrisburg and Iroquois have to, I'd like them to understand that on the water tower project, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were as creative as we could when it came to borrowing some of the money, using some of the reserves, and using the RSL money that those users put into for a number of years. So we used some grant money. So we got as creative as we could. And yeah, it's only 23 cents, but it still all adds up. The $15 extra is just, it's a challenge, as Councilor Wells says. If we decide that we don't want to do it this year, and next year it becomes a $25 increase, I'm going to tell you right now from experience that that kind of increase in an election year will get us all booted out pretty easily, just like that, because somebody's going to say, well, we were looking after not looking after people South Dundas and the residents using the water, which is not truthful. We got to come up with something that makes sense for both the municipality and for users. And I'm not saying that the balance is right yet, but there's some logic to it anyway. So, Councilor Lewis.
I know where you're coming from, Sarah, but I had the same thought process as Deputy Mayor Gardner and Councillor Wells. I thought the $15 a month was for the water tower, and now I find out that it's just to restock what we've already had. The question I have, with that $15 a month on the water bill, on the water side alone, where does that put the monthly bill, just strictly water, on the taxpayers of Morrisburg and Iroquois?
The water users, Councilor Lewis.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Just 1 second. I'll give you the monthly. So monthly bill is $67.62 for water.
Good. Because people have been asking me about the $15 increase, and I thought it was for the water towers, but now I'm going to have to go back and restate my statement that I made to start with. Now, we put the water up the $15 a month for 2021. I hope that we're not going to have a big hit in 2022 of an increase of water and sewer. So would the 2021 kind of level everything out? To the best of your knowledge, I know that you can't commit, but would that kind of level everything out in the long run?
Sean. Sorry, Sarah. Sean had either one of you has got to answer this question for us.
So when I was preparing this budget for council, I did do a quick projection out to 2022. And I have included things for inflation for labor and aqua and other similar things that are affected by inflation, and leaving the increase of 2% for January 1st for fees as well. That would I don't foresee anything else that would predicate that we need to increase rates even further. Totally contingent, of course, on capital needs for 2022.
Okay, I can live with that. It's just that I can't see. I really don't think I could justify another increase in 2022, especially with the increase that we're going to do in 2021. But I will take your word for that, and thank you very much, and thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Council Mellon?
Oh, yeah, when you crunch the numbers and, the $15 is for operating capital and the reserve to build it up, right, Sarah? To cover, the Carmen Road repair down the road. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Nobody nobody wants an increase. My years on council and doing water budgets, I'll give this credit, council credit and staff credit that, we have really put this water budget and sewer budget under a microscope and try and, because we have capital projects that, just got to be done. And, there's no, there's no way around it. I guess, hindsight, there should have been bigger increases going back, but, was always reluctant to try, to raise the rates because, didn't want everybody, screaming at us. But, and when we started raising the rates, Mayor Byveld, as you could probably remember, that too, we started raising the rates to be more competitive. And Shannon, you can probably remember that the water usage went down, and it did that for quite a few years, and it's leveled off now. But so that's actually, when we go looking forward to 2022, with this increase, people be more frugal with their water use. Our income or revenue may actually decrease and be able to, so that's not saying that, so we really don't know what the usage will be and what our income cost or our cost will be in 2022. If everything stays the same, that's fine. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, I realize it's 274 or something like that for Morrisburg and 296 for Iroquois, but the water towers have to be fixed, and we got to keep the money in there for what we need for the Carmen Road repair. I just don't know any other way to get around it. So, let's hope everybody continues to use the same amount of water, and the revenue will be at the same level that, the water usage will be at the same level next year as what it is last year. So, it is what it is. People got to realize that.
Anybody else right now before I speak? Okay, so I'm going to spit at the wall because brain's working here again. What would be the financial impact to the budget, and specifically where, if we took that $15 a month increase and cut it in half for 6 months? It's not what I want to do, but I want to know the impact so people understand that if we do it, this is the implication. Would it be basically not like we're putting aside transfer reserves 254,000, so that would basically be the cut.
Well, yes, that would be the Carmen Road transfer.
Okay, so if we did that, how many dollars would that be overall?
Sean,
Now,
is that something that we can calculate quickly, or do we need a few minutes for that?
Now, I will imply that the sewer rates would have to readjust the percentage, because I'm not here to chop them down, but the waters that seems like it's the big cruncher this year. And I understand, and it was 2014 September that we tried to raise rates by, I don't know, wasn't even close to these numbers, and it was an outcry at the wrong time of year, so. Go ahead, Sean, if you got something.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to Sarah's question, I will work on the numbers, but given how I messed those up at the last meeting and misspoke, I will take an extra few minutes. So it would be at least 5 minutes for me to try and run those to give you a more solid number.
Okay. If we had the number, at least we know the, yes, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, Mayor, I like the way you're thinking on this, but also, what was the increase last year? I just like to look at it in a 2-year window, what the increase has been for our residents.
It was a 2% increase for the flat rate, and I believe that was it in 2020.
Okay, well, we'll let Sean work on that because it doesn't really impact our next discussion, and then we can circle back to it. Unless there's anything further from any member of council right now. Okay, so we'll go to Dutch Meadows Pumping Station financing. We'll let staff go through their thoughts on this, and then we'll see where we go and how to deal with this. So Sarah, are you going on this?
Okay. So staff have provided 2 options to council to finance a pumping station without impacting the Morseburg wastewater reserves or user rates based off of council's direction at the previous meeting. So option 1 is to finance using a 20-year Infrastructure Ontario loan. And option 2 is funding it 50-50 using the RSL Reserve Fund and an Infrastructure Ontario loan. So in schedules 1 and 2, staff have provided a cash flow using those 2 options, with the payback coming from connection fees based off of what our current bylaw states, which is $5,000 per dwelling unit. The interest rate used is 2.7% for Infrastructure Ontario and 1% for the Rideau St. Lawrence payback. The Infrastructure Ontario rate is subject to change as it fluctuates based on the market rate. And then the RSL rate is based off of what we're currently earning on our reserve funds. In schedules 3 and 4, it's based on those same 2 options, but the payback is based off of negotiated connection fee rates with the swings over the course of the development. So as mentioned in the report, the connection fees in all 4 schedules, they're insufficient to cover the total loan payback. So with that said, in Schedule 5, I've utilized Schedule 4, which is paying for the pumping station 50-50 using RSL and the infrastructure loan. And I've floated the annual shortfalls using the water rate stabilization fund. So in looking at the reserve fund policy, we can utilize this reserve for this purpose. And staff don't foresee needing to use this reserve fund for any other purpose in the near future. I think whenever this reserve fund was created, and maybe the mayor was around when it was, and Shannon, I think he was here as well. What was happening was there was, I think, fluctuations with consumption in the water users. So this reserve fund was established just to help with those shortfalls if they did happen. We haven't had to utilize this reserve in the 6 years I've been here. So the thought process is that it's a good use for that money that we have. So based on the projections in Schedule 5, the stabilization fund would be insufficient in year 19 of the project and would be totally depleted. There's projected to be a total of about $150,000 short at the end of the project. So the recommendation to council today is to proceed with funding the pumping station using Infrastructure Ontario and the RSL reserve funds, and to float the annual shortfalls using the stabilization reserve. We're also recommending that the connection fees be written as per the current bylaw in the subdivision manual and not at a fixed negotiated amount to allow future councils to establish the connection fees as necessary through the 20-year term of the development. And finally, we're recommending that the connection fees for condos and apartments be per dwelling unit and at the same rate as in the bylaw. So I know that's a lot of information and schedules to go through, so I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay. So this is staff's recommendation as council has received information from the Swanks. So Swanks with Dutch Meadows are very willing to negotiate the rates. However, the trade-off with them is that they'd like those rates in stone. In other words, being part of that subdivision agreement. They did revise the rates yesterday to maybe reflect a little bit more of the reality of the situation and wanted to ensure that we were as whole as possible. I understand where staff are coming from. However, the Swanks are also, I guess, cautious because they've got caught with two councils now. One council said they do everything for them, and the next council comes along, us, and saying we're willing to work with you, but we need to come up with a plan that works for both of us, and that's what we've done. So I think there's an effort on their side to do what they can to cover this expense through connection fees. Fully understand that even if you borrow the money and you use the RSL reserve and pay both back, and I would certainly on the RSL reserve, you may want to keep in mind that interest fee may have to elevate as interest bank rates go up, because that's the fair way of looking at it. And we can float the money with the water rate stabilization reserve, which I believe was, and Shannon can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we started that when water consumption started falling off the cliff when we started the water plant, because before the water plant, everybody had pretty well free water. And then when they found out that the water wasn't as free as they'd like it to be, the consumption went really way down and lawn watering stopped. And people put bricks in toilets and did everything they could to conserve water. And I could not blame them whatsoever. You get down to a point, it was rather ironic. I remember those days when you had one government saying conserve water to save the planet, and then we're sitting here on this end saying use as much as you can so we get money. So we balanced it out. I know that the curve has slowed down. I'm not sure if it's totally stopped, but I think it's certainly slowed down compared to what it was in the past, because from 2008 till probably 2014, it was literally inclining at 60% easy, or 45%. So Shannon, any thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely correct. It was a challenge back a number of years ago where it seemed like any projections we had were not being dealt with as far as consumption. Consumption kept going down, so that was the reason we created that rate stabilization fund. So I think it's better now that we've done a bunch of fixings with our water meters, as well as worked with RSL for better billing as well too. So that could be part of it, but as we all know, there's more efficiencies as far as when it comes to appliances that reduces water. So it's trying to balance all that at the same time. So that was why it was created.
Okay, thank you. So I think from a council decision point of view, I think I do appreciate how staff have come up with these schedules, and I do really like giving us all the scenarios and making sure that, you know, we're gonna pick what makes sense to us first, and then of course the Swanks with their proposal. And and just a gentle reminder to council that part of our strategic plan we did in 2019 to 2022, point 2-3 was to work with the Swanks and Dutch Meadows Development to address the priority housing needs in South Dundas. So, you know, we have to understand that partnership somewhat. They're going to invest a lot of capital. They've already invested a lot of capital. I don't know, you know, it takes a lot of nerve and fortitude to do what they're doing right now, spending a significant chunk of change, and hopefully the rainbow at the end works out for them. So the options that staff have presented us are the recommendations are dealing with the using Infrastructure Ontario loan RSL 50/50. The annual shortfalls using the water rate stabilization reserve. Those to me make sense. Number 3 will be a question for council to address. And they have changed the connection fees on the condominiums, or as what they're really calling them as luxury apartments, because I think that's where their leaning is right now, to better reflect something that they could to work with from a from a rentability point of view. So we'll start with Deputy Mayor Gardner, and you don't have to make a decision every time you go around. I think in the end, we might land up doing a couple times around, but if you feel firmly on certain subjects, then please do so. So as you know, I have been working with the Swanks on this. It wasn't something that there's no vendetta against staff or council. I just seen I just sensed that we needed to do something, and sometimes having that discussion is better than waiting to the end and wishing you did. I think we've learned our lesson on certain other things too. So, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Byveld. Yeah. And I appreciate your work on this. I didn't take it offensively that you were working with the Swanks. I thought it was great. I will tell you right now that I will vote for anything that I will vote for needs to include the proposal by the Swanks. I think that one of the ways you kill your community is by not working with folks. And to be honest with you, in a perfect world, I would have loved to have been involved at the discussions from the get-go with the subdivision. It's something that we somewhat inherited, like a lot of things, when we came to council. And I, for lack of a better word, I don't think we need to jerk around anymore. I think I can understand why they want something rock solid. And we will benefit from that subdivision. And I will vote for any moving forward. In my mind, it has to include that agreement, and that's all I'll say for now.
Council Wells.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, like staff, I like all the schedules. What just happened? There we go. With all the schedules and that, I think number 5, the schedule is good, but I'm kind of with Councillor Mellon about taking that RSL and reducing it down even more so we're not borrowing as much. It's money we've earned over the years. We have the right to use it, and I think it's appropriate spot to use it right now. And the shortfall thing, it's that reserve is there for that purpose. The other thing with, I guess we'll talk about Dutch Meadows and what you've been going through, Mr. Mayor, with them. So these condos are becoming rental units now. They're not going to be considered condos. Is that what I'm?
That is their change. That there's a high change of mind there because of the challenges of building condos and dealing with all the legalities of it. Their new leanings is into a high rental and unit on those buildings.
Okay. Which actually that's taken a lot away from the connection fees, but as I went over your the way the increase are going up, hopefully it's made up for everything, which I'm assuming it will be. Because if it was actually the way it was presented as condos, they would actually be each a unit because they'll have a roll number and everything. But now, since they're a high-end rental, so they're for each building, there's only going to be one connection fee, correct, Mayor?
No, but their proposal for the connection fee is based per unit. So the first one would be 25 times 16, and the next one 3,700 times 16, and then the last building 5,000 times 16. So
okay,
still somewhat a connection fee per unit. They understand our thinking behind it and why we're leaning that way. To
and
be fair to both sides.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, like Deputy Mayor said, we got to give them something, and they're willing. That's someone right there that everyone's willing to work. I'm willing to go down like that, and so I think myself, Schedule 5, if we just took some more of the RSL to keep our infrastructure loan down, I'd be good with financing with Schedule 5. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Lewis?
Well, I think since this council has been on board with the Swanks, we worked very, very good together. Swanks seem to be very good to work with, and I understand where they're coming, that they'd like something rock hard in print. And I don't disagree with them because, the last council and then we come aboard, it was two different ways of looking at things. I think that this council, myself, has gone a long ways with Swings. They know that we seem to be true at our word and we want to work with them. And I'm like Deputy Mayor Gardner. I think, I like to use that funding, the rate stabilizer reserve, because we haven't used it in years. And we have that kind of money in RSL. Maybe we should use it also. So I'd be very comfortable with either option 4 or 5. I'll wait to hear what my other colleagues and I guess just Councillor Mellon and you, Mr. Mayor, before I make my decision. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon?
Thank you, Mayor Byvells. Yeah, so Swank's proposal that we've just received on the apartments, that's not included in your Schedule 5, those updated numbers. Is that right, Sarah? Because it is an increase from what we were looking at, or you haven't taken that into consideration on like building 2, 3,700, building 3, 5,000 per unit.
Councilor Mellon, to be fair to staff, no, they did not get that information in time to adjust the spreadsheet. And I don't, to be honest, the new numbers are better than these numbers. So at least if we go by the spreadsheet, that's worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm just being fair to them.
Yeah. Because of that, number are going to be better than Schedule 5, using a stabilization fund for any shortcomings for the apartments. The numbers are going to be better per unit for connection fee. And as far as the, you know, I think this is the best, probably the best proposal we got. You know, and I don't believe, Frank, I would personally, I would want something in writing too for you know, for the fees and whatnot going down the road over the next 10 years or whatever they're going to be looking at. I think they should require that, and they deserve that. I would maybe even suggest, like I had before, and Councillor Wells has spoke about it, you know, maybe using a little bit more of that RSL money, not touching the promissory note, but a little bit more of that interest and the dividend money. There's 130 whatever some thousand. I would maybe even look at using half of that, or you know, using, you know, 70, even maybe go up to, dare I say, 100,000 of that money to reduce our borrowing by that much. But Schedule 5 with Swank's new numbers and something in writing for them, and possibly using some more of the RSL interest and dividends. Thank you, everybody. That's it.
Okay. So I do believe, like, I understand where Councillor, you Councillor Mellon, you Councillor Wells are coming from, using more RSL money. I'm going to be a bit more cautious than that. I think if we use it for half of the loan, we still have a little bit of money in the piggy bank in case we need it for Carmen Road next year, and that's I wouldn't want to take all the money out of that piggy bank and then say next year, well, I guess we're doing only 2/3 of a project because we wish you had another extra 100,000 or something in the bank to deal with it. So that's my caution on that. I think the idea is sound. It's just that it's just like any other business that runs on cash. It's just one, you don't want to see that cash flow go to the point that you're always running on your operating loan all the time, and then you're going to hope your operating loan doesn't max out. So never been in that position, and I don't want to be in that position no matter how I look at life. But I do believe if we do go with the new fees that Swank have presented to us, this, to me, the spreadsheet will look a little bit better. I think the red will disappear in the end. You know, I do have faith, as much as this is timed out to 2040, that if things go well for them, and to be honest, they've always done a good subdivision in South Dundas, and we've seen it in Iroquois many times. I can't see why Morrisburg would be any different. I think it would sell, and it's going to sell well. We have very good community for people to come to. Yes, the market's hot now. In fact, if we had that all filled in, we'd have the next subdivision rolling too. But we all know that things do take time, and they don't have the big deep pockets of the big developers in the city of Ottawa that seem like they're springing left, right, and center and filling up as fast as they do. One of the reasons they didn't want to increase rates early is to get that jump start and get things going, because you don't want to scare people away. I think the new proposal is sound enough that in the end we'll make enough money back. My simple spreadsheet, and I will call it simple because it is, does suggest that over the lifetime of it, that we'll equalize our money back out. Interest rates are always a challenge, and I kind of allowed for that as best I could. But one thing I will say to the staff on the calculations, that you may want to up the interest rate on the RSL just in case, because the prime rate goes up, we will get a bit more out of that. And as much as Bank Canada didn't put it up yesterday, the suggestions are there that the economy is starting to roll, and if inflation hits what scares me is, and this is a sidebar note, that, you know, they're going to allow inflation to go up. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of, we have to be very cautious, because some of us that lived through the 70s, and remember the high days of inflation and what had to be had to tame everything back down, which was 20% interest rate. So sidebar note that, hope that doesn't happen. But I do believe that, you know, with Schedule 5, dressing it up, using the half and half is something that works for us. If we can make it work, then Swanks are willing to work with us, and hopefully we can get this thing, you know, wouldn't say put to bed, but at least it's one less thing off our plate. And then, to be honest, I still would expect staff to go back and fine tune this if this is the direction of council, and then we can make that decision on a later date. There's no doubt about that. So further comments from council? Yes, Council Mellon.
I can see where you're coming from as far as the interest in dividends on the RSL money, Mayor Bybels, and I realize that. I'm just, my biggest concern, I guess, is our borrowing capacity for some other projects going forward. And that's why I was, you know, thinking, you know, we maybe utilize some of that money, some more of those interest and dividend money now. But you make a good point, you know, we can spend it here, or probably spend it quite easily on Carmen Road repairs. So, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I guess. If we got to borrow for Carmen Road, or we borrow for, you know, the pumping station, but because I don't, you know, if it'd be nice to know if we had that. We don't have it, but it'd be nice to know what the end cost would be on that Carmen Road repair. Shannon or Sarah, you got the interest rate on the loan at 2.7. I thought I caught the news this morning that the rate, Bank of Canada, the rate was going down. Is that the current rate, 2.7% on those interest rate?
Yeah, so when we request an interest rate from Infrastructure Ontario, it's just based on the daily rate. So it can change on the daily, and we won't know what the rate is until we proceed with the application, and then they'll send us the rate that
So
day.
it could be actually
It's
up.
kind of, yeah, it's
Yeah,
hard to
okay.
say.
Yeah. It's still cheap money, but it'd be nice to get that locked in under 2%, but that's not going to happen. That only happened once, I think, in the last 2.5 years. Okay, that's all, Mayor Bybels.
And speaking with rates, the trend is up on long-term money. So, you know, we did the Williamsburg landfill. What was that, at 1.78 or something like that? It was less than 2, if I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 1.83, but
Okay, we started
Yeah.
at 1.7, and then it crept up to 1.83 before we signed the offer sheet. So now we're up to 2.7, and that's not unusual. All rates for that concerns my business mortgages, and yeah, they have gone up. So as much as short-term money is down, long-term money is creeping up. So it suggests that short-term money will creep up eventually. So if there's not anything further from council, anything further from staff before I finish this up, because I'm looking at it right now that council is in favor of doing the Schedule 5. Council is in favor of using the water rate stabilization reserve to float it. Council would like to make an agreement with Swanks on proposed rates as presented, and and the connection fees for the apartments as presented.
okay. The only thing further then, I believe Ethan has a motion, so we can proceed with the loan application through Infrastructure Ontario.
Okay. Is council good with at least going with the the application on this, getting this ball started, and then, so what is how much is the amount for the loan, Sarah? According to what you have on Schedule 5, correct?
Yeah, so $597,107.
Okay, so I guess I'll pull council. Are we good with using the 50-50 thought, 50% RSL money, 50% OCIF money? Okay, then we're good then. Ethan, you can read the motion then, please.
Sure, Mayor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Wells, that council authorize staff to submit a loan application through Infrastructure Ontario for $597,107 to finance the Dutch Meadows subdivision pumping station.
Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Those opposed, if any, motion carries. So we'll start that process, and then probably sooner than later, we need to fine tune both the Schedule 5, make sure it all works, and set up an agreement with the Swanks to make sure that they are this schedule is applied to their subdivision agreement. Speaking of subdivision agreement, is that still outstanding, CAO?
Yes, Mayor. Yeah, now with the connection fees, we'll put together the subdivision agreement and bring it back to the next council for approval.
Okay, because my understanding is that it's holding up some of their work, so we need to get this thing through.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so with that, we'll go circle back to the rates. And Sean, did you come up with a number I had requested concerning my thoughts of splitting that 15 in half for 6 months?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've tried to run these numbers, but I will give the disclaimer that, given my mistake last time, that these are quick numbers and they may need to be adjusted when the bylaw, if the bylaw comes back. So
okay, fair enough. We understand. Don't worry. I looked at my spreadsheet this morning and said, well, that doesn't make sense. So we all make mistakes.
So if we look at reducing the water rate from $15 a month to $7.50 per month increase, and using the sewer surcharges that are shown in the package of 65% and 86%, the water revenue would drop $116,000. The Morrisburg wastewater revenue would drop $48,000, and the Iroquois wastewater revenue would drop $35,000. That would make the Iroquois wastewater budget insufficient by that amount. So we would have to either reduce the transfers to reserves, increase the sewer percentage rate, or fund reserve transfers with reserves, which is counterproductive. When it comes to how it would affect rates on the water and sewer bill, again, we're using the sewer surcharges that appear in your package. The monthly increase for a Morrisburg customer would be $10.49, and the monthly increase for a Iroquois customer would be $10.71. I'll await your comments.
Okay. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the thoughts. I do believe that if we did the reduction on water, the percentages that you calculated would have to come up to equalize that back out to where it was, because I don't think there's any desire to decrease the wastewater in either village. It's a matter of how do we take $7.50 off the bill just to make it more palatable. It's not going to be perfect. There's no doubt about it. And I would, my proposal would be only for 6 months because we need the money. You know, there's no magic, as Councillor Wells said. You know, we can't fool ourselves and say that money's not needed, because I don't believe that's correct. Because next year we're going to look at this and, well, why didn't we do it? And we're going to have to find money, and we're always being challenged with you know, we're digging into the RSL piggy bank. The first council has ever done that. And I'm not saying it's not the right thing, but now we're getting down to the bottom of it. And that's not maybe as prudent as we'd like to be. So Deputy Mayor Gardner, just your thoughts on that, and we'll see where we go.
Thanks, Mayor. To be honest with you, while it is hard to swallow, I hear what you're saying as far as we have to do it and stuff like that. However, I think even though it's going to be some tricky math, I think doing the 6-month thing, given the current state with the fact that we are still in a worldwide pandemic, however, they are projecting that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I think 6 months. I think our residents deserve a little bit of compassion with this conversation. And I know it's difficult, and I know that, it would be awesome to be on a council where we could do a million things and never raise the tax rate or the water rates. But I think what I was looking for was, and having a difficult time taking, was the fact that it just was such a huge jump in the current state of affairs. So I think that I would like to explore, get concrete numbers on the 6-month, and see what the options are, because we are still in a worldwide pandemic. We can't ignore that. I'd love to ignore the pandemic and COVID, but we can't. So a little bit of compassion, I think, would go a long way. And realistically, you're right. It's going to be tricky to kind of balance it, but I think our residents deserve that that work to see if we can make it doable.
Council Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor, about that. Like, I'm willing to do a 6-month thing, just to bring all the residents into it gradually. But again, like I said, at the end of the day, we're just be fooling ourselves that we can't increase this, because it is what it is at the end of the day. So by saying that, I think the 6 months, bring it up, bring everyone into it, then gradually in and get the money where we're needed. Like, it's, and again, I say this all the time, it's just unfortunate, all the capital projects this council has to deal with, but whether it's this council or next council, we still have a municipality to run, and we need to get the money somewhere. So anyways, and like, this pandemic's not helping things, like Deputy Mayor Gardner said. So at the end, we'll all get through this and move on and get things fixed. Thank you.
Council Lewis.
I do believe that our residents deserve a break. And I understand that, money is money. But with this epidemic, people's losing their jobs every day. And I think it's only fair that this council looks after our residents of South Dundas. I would also recommend the 6 months at half the price, and then go into it slow. I know it doesn't look good on our bank side, but I do believe that the way that the people are losing their jobs and everything, that it's better to give them a break than put them in debt further than what they are right now. So I would definitely agree with the 6 months, and then after that, we'll hit it with full force. Thank you.
Council Allen.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be a little bit the rest, I guess. I think we're just kidding ourselves, folks. I mean, 2022 is going to come along in 6 months' time. We're going to be sitting here and we're going to be debating if we want to raise it to 750 to be retroactive to play catch up, and any other increases might have to come into effect in the 2022 budget to, cover operating costs or whatever. I know it's not, nobody likes a big increase at once, but I think we're really, that's been part of the problem, I think, all along for, you know, that nobody wants to take that jump, you know, to get to where we need to be. And realistically, that's that $15 is where we need to be. And, you know, delaying it by $750 for 6 months, I think, you know, in 6 months' time, people are still going to be hurting, and there could be a very good chance that that CERB money may be dried up by then, and money might be even tighter. And, you know, in 2022 or in 6 months' time, you know, we're going to be looking to get to 750 retroactive that we need it now instead of going up 15 and then any other increases or any other thing. So, no, I'm as much as it, you know, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth and nobody likes it. And I would say we leave it at the $15.
Okay, Sean, did you have something to say since you popped into my screen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did another quick calculation to see what we needed to do to make that insufficiency for the Iroquois wastewater budget, bring it to zero. And it looks as though we're going to need to get closer to back to 100% to bring that budget down. So I'm going to need to know where council wants to sit, if you want to leave the rate at 100% or if you want it left at 86 or somewhere in between.
And the Morrisburg side, it was, you still kind of balanced it, but
Yes, Mr. Mayor, with Morrisburg, we adjusted the budget because it was there was enough money being transferred to reserves that we had some wiggle room. And all we did with the Morrisburg surcharge is we reduced it to the same amount that the Iroquois repairs were facing as an increase. I believe it was 18% on each side. And so if we go that same route, then I'll have to run those numbers as well.
okay. Well, my thinking was only on the water side down 750. I know that the impact on the wastewater side should, you know, you got to project it at 18, still a significant increase, but if we left it, I do believe we'd have to adjust the percentages to make that all work. And I'm not denying what Councilor Mellon's putting out there. But I do believe taking 750 off a bill is something that if we can do it, we should do it. And 6 months, that's it. You know, people will be warned that this is, you know, we're doing our best as council, you know, and I know some of them are going to accuse us that you're not on the water system, so you're not paying the bills. But, you know, we have, as much as we got infrastructure that was significantly paid for, 2/3 on the water side and 75% on Morrisburg and 100% on Iroquois. Those plants are very expensive to run, as we're finding out, and and we can't compare it to any other village because, for example, the village of Winchester can just have lagoons, and that is something we can't do along the St. Lawrence River. We can't operate lagoon systems. In fact, South Stormont is now looking at a new treatment center in Iroquois, in Ingleside, sorry, and they're looking at $55 million as a bill. So they haven't got any money yet to deal with that. So we got, as much as they were fully funded, well built buildings and infrastructure, they are expensive to run. And somebody say, well, you know, and our manager's right. If we don't have the money to replace that blower, the whole system goes down. We got to be ready to roll. So, and that's why I don't want to decrease the dollars technically on the water wastewater, but I think a $7.50 decrease on water, as much as it may come back to haunt us next year, as Councilor Mellon will allude to, it's either that or do the slow hit and incremental raises to the point we get to $15 within a year. It's the same difference. Just splitting it in half now or splitting it in half later. That's too much work. I think I think staff would have the right to take me out back and punish me for that one, because that would just be a nightmare to bill. But I think a 750, just taking 750 off the flat rate and adjust the rest to make it work to where we are now, I think is the best we can do. Yes, there's risk. I won't disagree that, but I think there's enough money within the system to make whatever system we have to, whether we have to borrow from another reserve, we'll make it work. Just as simple as that. That's my feeling. It's up to council in the end to decide where they want to go, but my recommendation from my point of view is take 750 off 6 months, June to December, or I guess it would, yeah, don't give them a Christmas present that they're not going to like. So whatever months it takes to get us through 2021, but in January 2022, the rates go back to $15, and that's the way we have to set it up, one way or the other. And then the wastewater numbers Sean will have to do his magic to make them equal to what they're expecting now dollar wise, and then whatever rate, that number they come back with is something I think that we can live with. Deputy Mayor?
Fair enough. I will say that this is another situation that we need very good communication out to our residents. And I don't mean just your rates going up by $15 here. I mean, they need a fulsome explanation as to how we have gotten where we have gotten. And I'm not trying to be negative, but there's been certain situations 2.5 years in where the communication has fell extremely flat. And I can tell you that if I'm on the phone with a resident and I spend the time and I explain things, they still might not like it, but at least they understand it. So that's the only thing I have to say on this is the communication plan for this needs to be amazingly, thought out and delivered to the residents, because I do not like the lack of communication and the lack of misunderstanding that we sometimes hand to our residents when we make these decisions. So that's all I'll say on that.
Councilor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I can see Councilor Mellon's thinking, but I also I agree with you, Mayor, that bringing in for this year, I know it might come back to bite us, but it's a little break. It's showing a little bit of compassion on our side, but at the end, we still have to get the money. Deputy Mayor's comment, I fully agree with that. I would like to see a letter drawn up from the Treasury Department explaining where we got, how we got there, and saying, okay, we need this and this, and like do a very good explanation and put it in there, and the residents can read it. Okay, we need this money for the Carmen Road and all this and the infrastructure, and I think it'll lessen the impact on them where if they can actually read it. So I'm good with the 6 months. And at the beginning of January, put up the rates and let Sean adjust the other to percentages and stuff like that, and call it a day.
Just a second, Councilor Lewis. Sean has something to say.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, at first blush, I did run quick numbers for these surcharges, and Iroquois wastewater would need to be 99.3, and Morrisburg wastewater would need to be 74.4. So there would be very small reductions from the 2020 rates.
In other words, if we take the 750 off, we'll just leave the rates where they were, 75 and 100.
That's what we can do, yes.
Okay. It makes there's no logic. Okay, Councilor Lewis?
Oh, I think it's all been said. I agree with everything that my colleagues have said, and I I agree with them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Allen?
Yeah, I hear what everybody's saying, and I guess I'm still gonna be the Grinch, you know. And I'm just looking, you know, down the road in 6 months' time in the 2022 budget, you know, I think what I've said before, I'm not gonna go into repeating it again. I still stand by the fact that I think we need to leave it at the $15 just to keep from fooling ourselves. But I hear what everybody's saying, and I agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner and Councillor Wells on the communication, sending a letter out explaining whatever we do, why we were doing it, and how we're doing it. So that's all, Mayor Byvells.
Okay, so it seems council direction is to take $750 off the flat rate. With Sean's calculation, leaving the Morrisburg wastewater at 75 and Iroquois at 100 makes logical sense now. I know it's pennies, or it wouldn't be pennies, but the percentage is way too close to try to dismiss that one and fine cut it. And I do appreciate his calculation, because I understand that 110%. So and that's for the remainder of 2021 from council, correct? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so when are we would, I'm just trying to, so it's now April, May, so you'd
When
implement it in June? This would come into effect?
when was implementation, Sarah?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. I believe we had the rates coming in as of June. Sean can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so it'll be 7 months then, June to December.
Correct.
And then January 1st, they would go back up to the $15 for the remainder of the budget year, which is to the end of June or the end of May.
Okay,
Okay, so you'll have to bring back a resolution to that effect, and make sure that we see the numbers again, make sure we're all comfortable with that. And we can go from there. Does that make sense to staff?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll come back with another, I guess, like a final budget package that shows the impact of the flat rate decrease, and also come back with Dutch Meadows with another projection as to how that will look with the new rates.
Okay. So we'll either add it into a council meeting, or more or less have another special council meeting to deal with it, because I know our council meetings are full, and I don't see them changing in the short term at all, and we need to get this one done. So A, the rates can be posted, B, the communication strategy. And I don't want to call it a strategy, because that sounds like we're telling people our view, but I think, communication is the key to everything we do in our world, whether we're working on our jobs or we're working in the municipal sector or whatever. It's the best thing going forward is having a good communication strategy, and sometimes that includes the old fashioned print. And I'm not saying we need to put everything in there, but I'd be almost tempted to say, once we get the budget document done, that if somebody wants to get real fussy and link back into these numbers, at least that opportunity is there. Most people won't, but I can envision a few people going through them and wanting to question us, but I think we've gone through them best we can. I do believe staff have presented something that's rational and fair and makes sense for South Dundas. So, anything else from any members of council? Anything else from any members of staff at this time? Okay, so we thank you for that, and we'll look forward to setting up something to make a finalization of this. So before I've asked for a closed session, and the clerk will read the closed session motion. I'd like to thank staff or council so far for their work, staff for their work on the budget. It was a very challenging one, but I think in the end we came up with something that I wouldn't say it's reasonable, but the best we could with what we had to be fair to the users and to us as the operators. And I'd like to thank the audience for engaging this morning. Once we go out of closed session, there will be just the adjournment. So this will be the sign off for today. So thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, please.
Yes, sir. Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that council proceed in camera pursuant to section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, more specifically, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee.
All heard motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you very much.